Thank you for joining us today and welcome. My name is Karen Brown, Vice President of Innovation and Strategic Learning at Fairfield County's Community Foundation. Throughout 2018, we've been pleased to host a series of community conversation webinars to spark discussions about topics and issues impacting Fairfield County. For over 25 years, Fairfield County's Community Foundation has been working to ensure that every individual in our region has the opportunity to thrive. To create lasting change in Fairfield County, we bring together bright minds, bold leaders, and trusted resources. As a philanthropic advisor, the Community Foundation manages close to 600 charitable funds. As a grant maker, we've provided over $200 million in support of the nonprofit sector in Fairfield County. And as a community partner, we unite people and resources to address closing the opportunity gap across the 23 towns and cities in Fairfield County. But we can't do this work without the support of all of you, our donors, nonprofits, elected officials, and colleague philanthropic organizations. I'm excited today to be joined by Tia Hodges, Program Officer at the City Foundation, where she is responsible for managing grant relationships within the City Foundation's Youth Economic Opportunities portfolio and is actively engaged with the implementation of the City Foundation's $100 million Pathways to Progress initiative. Tia works closely with community partners across the country to structure grant programs that focus on helping young people link educational goals with leadership training, professional networks, and on-ramps to employment. I also want to take this opportunity to recognize the local leadership of Lily Lopez of City, who manages City's multiple partnerships in our own region. We do want today's webinar to be an interactive discussion, so we invite you to submit your questions in the question box that you should find on the right-hand side of your screen. Please contribute your questions at any time. If you don't see the question box, click on the small orange arrow in the top right-hand corner. We have a few questions of our own to start the conversation, so let's get going. Our first question for you, Tia, is for you to tell us a little bit more about the Pathways to Progress initiative and why the City Foundation decided to make such a bold philanthropic move in this important area.
Hi, Karen. Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak with everyone today and to work with you and team to make today happen. And also, I just want to echo the thank you to Lily, my colleague here at City. I'm really excited to be joined with everyone and to talk a little bit about Pathways to Progress. In 2014, the City Foundation, or actually prior to 2014, the City Foundation had made heavy investments in college access and success programs, but understanding and seeing the need to help to further develop young people, ages 16 to 24 in particular, be prepared to enter the workforce successfully and establish economic progress for themselves and their families. We launched Pathways to Progress. It was an opportunity to help young people develop workplace skills, which we all know is so incredibly needed, both hard and soft skills, but also to provide on-ramps to employment. So it's one thing to help young people develop skills, but if they're not able to leverage those skills through employment opportunities, one, as we all know, really goes with the other. So we had as I call it, a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal originally in 2014, which was the first iteration of Pathways, or I call it Pathways 1.0, to be bold in this field of a 3-year, $50 million investment, and that was really to help young people to develop those workplace skills and connect them to employment opportunities. We are now in Pathways 2.0, as you can see from this slide. And the first bullet point, and that we're in the midst of a 3-year, $100 million investment. And that investment is to reach 500,000 youth globally. So when we initially launched Pathways, we did it just here in the U.S. We did it in 10 markets across the United States. But because of the success of Pathways, we understood that young people across the globe really could use that skill development and connectivity to employment, and hence, as I call it, Pathways 2.0, and that was launched in February 2017. And in addition to the financial commitment or investment that the City Foundation made, we thought it was equally important and impactful to leverage the expertise, but also the strong desire of our city employees to give back where they live and work. And so we have paired the financial investment and commitment with connectivity or connection with our city employees, and to really leverage their expertise. And we did that from the initial launch of Pathways in 2014, and we continue that work today. And then finally, another important factor that you'll see on the slide is that sharing an opportunity or helping to educate young people the opportunities that exist or what it's like to work at City. So we call them on-site learning opportunities, and that's where it's an opportunity to bring young people on site. So they get a sense of the businesses and the functions in which City is engaged. And for many youth, especially from low to moderate income communities, sometimes it's the first opportunity that they've had to go to a corporate office or just in an office period. It's an opportunity to hear from our colleagues in terms of work that they're engaged and the work that City is doing. And they're often surprised by the work that we're doing, but also the opportunity to connect with our city colleagues, I think is probably one of the benefits. So we moved towards Pathways to Progress for all of these various reasons, and I think have done a good job, or a great job rather, at leveraging at our strengths to have an impact on young people across the U.S. initially and now across the globe.
Thank you, Tia. We're going to continue and forward to everyone Tia's slides, just being mindful of your time. So our next question for Tia is about the key components of the Pathways to Progress initiative's focus on youth employment. Can you tell us a little bit about the key ingredients of the initiative's youth employment focus, Tia?
Sure. So when you get the slides, you'll see that I focused on the partnerships, but I'll also weave in some of the pieces that I spoke about just a minute or two ago. For us, for Pathways, we understand, one, when you have such a BHAG or big, hairy, audacious goal, not all youth go on the same path. Not everyone's going to go into a particular sector or make it in a particular way. So we understood, I think from the onset, that it was really important to diversify the portfolio and pathways that young people are likely to take, and that is also necessary for them regardless of the career or the business that they started. So for us, mentoring, jobs or youth with a focus on youth employment, entrepreneurship, leadership skills, and then also financial capability or financial education are all significant components or main ingredients to preparing young people for jobs and careers. Mentoring, we know that young people, in particular from low to moderate income and underrepresented communities, really benefit. Well, all people benefit from mentoring. I think anyone on the call can understand and appreciate that. But young people in particular from low to moderate incomes can really benefit from mentoring. And right now we're working with Management Leadership for Tomorrow, also known as MLT. We're also working with iMentor. And interestingly, also the National Association for Urban Debate Leagues. in terms of helping to mentor these students to and through high school, but also to and through college as well. I mentor focuses on high school, MLT focuses on college, and the Urban Debate League focuses on high school. In addition to mentoring, these mentors also serve as an important network or help these young people in particular to develop and create and strengthen their networks. Which is significant for education as well as employment. How many of us have secured employment opportunities through our network? Most of us do, and I think we know the statistics by and large indicate that that's how most people get their jobs. So that mentoring component has been really significant. Youth employment is a significant driver as well. We have a heavy investment in jobs in particular. We support summer youth employment programs, so municipal SYEP programs across the U.S. We also have a youth workforce fund that is a fund where we support hyper-local organizations in the direct service that they have for youth workforce development, so skills and connectivity to employment. We're also focused with Empower, Youth Build, and America's Promise Alliance on a significant thought leadership initiative or campaign around really talking and elevating the importance of investing in youth and youth employment. So jobs is significantly important. Paired with the employment is also financial capability and financial education. So through our summer youth employment program, in particular with municipalities, we're working with Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund. And that is to not just help young people secure employment or that first job, but equally educate them through financial education and then create access to bank accounts. So CFE is our partner in this. They help to really work with us and working with municipalities to support those summer youth employment programs, which are really mainstays in a lot of communities across the U.S., whether large or small, but also create access to bank accounts. And that's really important because often in LMI communities, not only are young people, but also their parents may choose, because what's available to them are the check cashing places. So it's really about teaching young people to open up an account, understand how to manage their money and save their money as well. And then entrepreneurship. So you'll see on the slide, I have entrepreneurship. It's also entrepreneurship. It should be also titled social entrepreneurship and inclusive leadership. So we're working with NIFTY, Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, to help young people develop an entrepreneurial mindset as well as businesses. And then we're also working with Echoing Green, which this is a new grant just as of June, and that is inclusive leadership. And what does that look like? That is supporting a diverse group of social entrepreneurs who are creating employment opportunities for men and women of color. And that is all a part of leadership development as well. We do have a grant that is coming to a close, which is Service Works, which was or is a relationship that we have with Points of Light and Corporation for National and Community Service, supported by City Foundation to help young people develop leadership skills by investing time in their community and serving in their community. So for City Foundation, I think these are some of the main ingredients to help prepare young people for jobs and careers, and happy to reflect on those or add a little bit more detail in the Q&A on that should you have any additional questions.
Great. Thank you, Tia. Well, it's clear your four components of mentoring, jobs, financial capability and education, and entrepreneurship and inclusive youth leadership are the cornerstones of Pathways to Progress. And it's also clear that the City Foundation is partnering with some of the best thought partners on the national level. Some of those organizations which you just listed and which our participants will see in the webinar slides. I do want to remind our audience that we have some questions coming in. So I want to remind you that you can still ask your questions at any time in the question box, which we will get to in a few minutes. Our next question to Tia is about initiative evaluation. How is the City Foundation evaluating this multi-city work, and what success have you seen to date?
Yeah, so I'll start with the success we've seen to date, because the evaluation part, it will take me longer to articulate that. I'll wind up in the weeds a little bit too much on the evaluation part, perhaps. But in terms of our Pathways to Progress, we are in the midst of a 3-year, $100 million investment to reach 500,000 young people globally. So thus far, we've and the impact report slide that you will see is really dated at the end of 2017, because we're in the middle of 2018 right now. So we'll have an update for that much later in the year. But thus far, we've spent $43 million in investments across 79 markets across the globe, and we've engaged already over 200,000 youth in programming. We've coupled that with engaging more than 3,500 city employees across 60 markets across across the globe. More than 160,000 young people have gained employability skills. 44,000 youth are acquiring new or first jobs, and 74,000 youth are demonstrating financial knowledge. We have more than 10,000 youth-led enterprises created, improved, or expanded, and then more than 51,000 youth are gaining work experience, including through internships and apprenticeships. Once again, those are big numbers, but do know that this work is being done globally. Remember the globality in terms of the impact investment, as well as the results that are coming in. So how do we take a look at or evaluate the work that we're doing? I will say specifically for the U.S., which is where I will focus, our major partners in particular, almost all, even large and small, have some component of research and evaluation. The larger organizations like your NIFTY, your iMentor, will have in-house research and evaluation teams that are tracking specific metrics and data points. And they're actually producing some internal reports for us that show us the progress of the young people that they're working with and that our investments are touching. And then also more holistically as well. We also do, as part of the grant, for almost all of the major partners that I've listed, have some form of third-party evaluation, and that is an important aspect for us. So National Association for Urban Debate Leagues will actually have a report out. It'll be late this year, I think sometime in the fall or late fall, talking about the impact of debate for urban debate students, like the necessity or impact that debate has on their lives, both in high school and also seeing them into college. And then America's Promise Alliance will actually produce a report as well that will engage some of our Youth Workforce Fund grantees. So those are just two examples. And then we have, I think, another report coming out as well. So it's important for us to be able to review and document the work that is occurring, and third-party validation where it is important to conduct that work, but also we're big on making sure that our grantees are also tracking and measuring the data and the impact, and really talking about it with us on a consistent basis. So it's not something that we do once a year. We're doing it consistently.
Thank you, Tia. It sounds like you've got the right metrics and you've got a very strong focus on evaluation. I'm going to jump right to our questions because we have a whole bunch of great questions pouring in, and I'm going to go right to that. Our first question from the audience is about how your 15 sites, I should say, in Pathways to Progress recruited the actual young people to join the initiative. Can you tell us about how your partners in the 15 sites went about the often challenging aspect of youth recruitment?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it definitely depends on the partners and the work. So often, for I think most of our partners, the young people are connected as opposed to disconnected youth. And I know often we don't like to use the word disconnected, but for the sake of today's conversation, I'm going to cheat a little bit. For organizations or partners that have youth that are connected to a education institution or a program, so like NIFTY or iMentor, they're both connected to high school students or in the high schools. It is often at the school level where recruitment happens. For partners like Points of Light, as an example, or the Service Works program, because they are working with or focused on engaging disconnected youth, that can be a challenge, but they often work with community-based organizations that are intensely focused on re-engaging youth in their community, identifying those youth, and then leveraging the strength of the program to get them involved and engaged and hopefully build their skills and identify a community project and or employment opportunities really as the hook to keep those young people engaged. So it really depends on if the partner is connected to an institution or if they're working with youth who are totally disconnected.
Got it. Thank you, Tia. Our next question is about your sites in Pathways to Progress. It's clear that City Foundation has picked some very large cities to work with in the Pathways to Progress initiative. Our question is about Connecticut being a collection of really 169 small cities and towns. Is there any opportunity that the City Foundation might consider working in a small state or with small or mid-sized cities?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. One of the things that I did not know about Pathways, especially where the employee engagement component takes place, is we were really intentional about placing Pathways where we have in particular a large employee base, because that helps us to engage our employees. So our investments in the markets, as we say, or cities, have been selected where CITI has a presence, and in particular, large employee base. We do have some smaller markets. Unfortunately, they're not Connecticut, but I think there's a lot from Pathways that all of you can take inspiration from and utilize in Connecticut. But at this point, we're not in Connecticut, and I'm sorry that we're not, but we are in smaller markets in Delaware, South Dakota. I think Tucson might argue whether or not they're a smaller market, but in comparison to an LA or Chicago, we're also focused in St. Louis as well. So we do hit these smaller markets, just unfortunately not Connecticut at this time.
Thank you, Tia. Well, I know through our partnership with Lily Lopez that our nonprofits in Fairfield County will be able to learn about the key sort of lessons learned, best practices from the 15 sites in Pathways to Progress. And we look forward to sharing some of those lessons learned in the future within Fairfield County. Our last question is about how you measure success in the financial capability, financial education area. Are you tracking metrics such as young adults' credit score improvement, other metrics around financial capability that are being collected across your sites in that area?
Yeah, really great question. I think so. There are two separate programs. One is at the municipal level, and the other is that I did not mention is with Prosperity Now, and that is to work with nonprofit organizations to help them embed financial capability into their youth workforce programs. That project is currently underway, and they should have some idea or findings in terms of this exact question. So can't answer it on in terms of the nonprofit organizations that are part of that project just yet. But for the municipal SYEP programs, CFE, Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund, who is our partner, has done some tracking with the cities to learn how much students are saving and how many bank accounts they are opening. Some of that is, please do know, some of that is personal information, so the students have to proactively report that information. But as of I think that was early 2017, more than, I think at least more than $6 million, as an example, had been saved by students or young people working through the summer youth employment programs. And I do not recall exactly how many bank accounts had been opened, but they were doing their best to track that information. It can be challenging to track it because that information, one, we don't hold the bank account information and how much they have in their checking or savings account. So it's personal information or data, but we were delighted to see that these students had saved a lot of money. And when you start talking about $6, $7, $8 million, that's actually quite a bit of money, knowing that a lot of students are low to moderate income, and so they're probably having to not only make money, but also support themselves and their families. We continue to remain encouraged by the number of students that continue to open up checking and savings accounts. And we do have anecdotes from some of the markets, from the students directly, indicating how important and impactful learning about checking and savings accounts, but also saving. So I think retooling how they think about saving for, even if it's for a car or for clothes or for their education, just by having that small intervention in terms of financial education and access to bank accounts has made a big and significant difference in their lives, and something they would not have learned without that particular program in place.
Thank you, Tia. There's a lot of research that shows that early savings behavior in young people, particularly with their first or second job, is critical. So that those metrics that you just shared with us are really impressive. I want to wrap up our time together this afternoon and thank Tia and the City Foundation for their incredible philanthropic leadership with regard to Pathways to Progress. I also want to thank our attendees for staying on the webinar. We will be sending you the slides via email shortly, the slides that Tia prepared. And I want to call your attention to our next Community Conversations webinar in our series, which will take place on September 12th. It will focus on an important and innovative new approach to addressing homelessness and early education, which the Community Foundation is proud to be supporting in Bridgeport. Finally, I would like to call your attention to our Get Out the Vote mini grants program. You can learn about Get Out the Vote mini grants by visiting the Foundation's website at fccfoundation.org. A very brief application to apply is due on July 27th. And this is our first time offering this special mini grant opportunity. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you can join us again on September 12th and in future Center for Nonprofit Excellence workshops. Good afternoon. Bye-bye.